Okay, so we're going to be looking at rearranging formulae so that we can get the skills needed to answer these D up to A star questions. So let's have a look then. So we're going to make T the subject of this formula. Make subject means get it on its own equals, so we're after making this T equals something. So we look at what's going to happen. We want T to be positive, so it's already positive over here. The 5's to move and the u's to move. So we basically got to decide which order do we do things in. Well, the best way to do this is whatever's attached to the letter itself, actually physically with it, we move last under normal circumstances. So we're going to move the u. This u is positive, so the opposite of that is take away the u. So we always come down when we rearrange formulas. So we're doing v take away u. And that equals, well, u take away u means that's gone to 0, which is what we wanted, so we've got 5t, and the last thing we need to move to get this to be t on its own is the 5. The 5 is being times by the t, so we need to move the 5 across the other side by the opposite, which is dividing. So divide by 5, divide by 5. Again, we always come downwards, so we have v minus u first. Then we're dividing by 5, well the symbol for divide is the line across. So we've got v minus u divided by 5 equals t. So our final answer to have t as on its own we've got there is v minus u divided by 5. At this stage we should check that that has all worked. So the way we do this is we simply give u and t a value at the beginning, and it doesn't really matter what they are. So I'm going to give u a value of 2 and t a value of 3. So 5 times 3 is 15, plus t is 17. So these values have given me a v equal to 17. So I now go back to the end rearranged equation and we check it. So v was 17. Take away the u value we chose originally, which was 2. Divide that by 5, and we should get the originally chosen t value, which was 3. So 17 take away 2, 15. Divide by 5 is 3. So the check worked. Always worth doing a quick check just to make sure that we've done our operations correctly when we've swapped things about. Okay, so another example of rearranging is we're going to make y the subject of this formula. So we've got a 3 to move and a 2 to move. Again, I'm going to do the movement of the constant here first, the thing that's not attached to the letter itself. So we've got the opposite of plus 2 is take away 2. So we've got x take away 2 is equal to 3y. And again, we're trying to get y positive on its own, so we need 3 to move. It was 3 times y, so the opposite of that is divide by 3. So again, to balance the equals, we divide both sides. So we've got x take away 2 divided by 3 equals y. Again, we've always come down doing what's first, and then the operation that we've been done to move. So we end up with the final answer as y equals x minus 2 over 3. Okay, so another example. We're rearranging this to make q the subject. Well, it's got a bracket in it, so the recommendation is multiply the bracket out first and then move things. It's not always the only way. You could have divided by a first, but I'm going to multiply out the bracket. So a times q is aq, a times c is ac, and we've got a takeaway in there, and that is equal to d. We're trying to make q the subject, so we need to move the minus ac across the other side. So because the q is already positive here, there's just the minus ac and the a itself to move first. So let's have a look. So we're going to add ac, because that's the opposite of minus AC, so we end up with AQ is equal to D plus AC. Trying to make Q the subject, so we're going to leave that where it is, A times, so the opposite is divide by A. So we end up with Q, because A divided by A is 1, so 1Q is equal to D plus AC, again coming top down, so we've got D plus AC all divided by A. So that would be our final answer for that question. This next one here, we've got to make A the subject, so we've got two things to move. We've got the plus 8a, 8u to move, and we've got the 4 to move. Again, tend to do the things that's not attached to the letter itself that we want as the subject. So I've got a plus 8u to move first, so I'm going to minus 8u from both sides. So that gives me, coming top down again, s minus 8u is equal to a over 4. So the only thing I've got to move now to make a the subject is to move the divide by 4. So times by 4 times by 4. The only thing we've got to remember to be careful here is that we've got s minus 8u, that's been multiplied by 4. So we put the s minus 8u in a bracket to make sure that it's all being multiplied by the 4. And then that equals the a. 4 on top, 4 divided by 4 is 1, so we're left with 1a. So our final answer is 4 bracket s minus 8u. This one here, we want to make t the subject. So again, we've got a plus u to move, and we've got a 5 to move. As always, I will move the thing that's not attached to the letter itself first. So the opposite of plus u is minus u. Again, coming top down. So we've got the v minus u equals 5t. This is timesing, so the opposite of timesing is dividing, so I'm going to divide by 5 because 5 divided by 5 is 1, get 1t, but then I must do the same to the other side of the equals to balance and make sure it's a fair thing. So v minus u over 5 equals t. Again, we can just swap that over to make it t equals, because we always like the subject at the beginning of the formula. So v minus u over 5. So next examples. Here we're trying to make t the subject. Again, we've got a bracket, so likely to multiply this out first. So 2t minus 10 equals y. We're trying to make t the subject, so I've got a minus 10 to move. The opposite of that is plus 10. So we've got 2t equals y plus 10. And then we've got the 2 times to move that. Opposite of times is dividing, so divide both sides of the equals by 2. So we end up with t equals y plus 10 over 2. Here for the next one, we've got to make w the subject. It's involved in lots of operations here. So the w is there, we've got plus 20 to move, we've got to divide by 200 to move, and we've got to times by 3. Again, I'm going to leave the thing that's attached to the letter itself till last, and my advice is that whenever you've got a divide involved, if you can, try and get rid of that first. So I'm going to times both sides by 200, because then I'll end up 200 over 200, which is 1, which will just leave me 1 of the 3w plus 20 here. Do the same to both sides to make it fair. So we have 200p, timesing means put them together, and that equals 3w plus 20. And again, we're back to the classic, we've got a plus 20 to move, so minus 20 to both sides. So we end up with 200p minus 20 equals 3w. And the last thing to do is we need the 3 to be moved to the other side. It's timesing here, so we're going to move by dividing. So we end up with w equals 200p minus 20, all divided by 3. And this bottom one here, they're saying express a in terms of w. This is just another way of saying rearrange to make a the subject. It's just that the a equals must have some things to do with w because of the way it's saying express a in terms of w. So a little bit of work to do here. First thing I'm going to do is I've got to divide here by a plus 12. I'm going to have to move that across there because I need to bring the a's together to factorise out a on its own, because I want a as the subject, so I need to get a equals. I've got a fraction here with a in 2 positions. When you've got the subject letter in 2 different places, it virtually always means somewhere in the workings out we're going to factorise that a out to leave it as a single subject. So let's look what happens. So we're going to multiply by a plus 12. So we've got 3w plus 20 in a bracket because it's 2 of those things, times by a plus 12. And because I had a divide by 200 here, I'm going to multiply by 200 to the other side. So we ended up with 200a. That's got rid of the division parts. Now I can multiply these 2 brackets out and see where we're going. So 3w times a is 3wa, 3w times 12 is 36w. 20 times a is 20a positive, and we've got 20 times 12, which is 240, and that equals 200a. Now, because I'm trying to factorise out the a to make a the subject, I'm going to move the a across to the other side. So let's have a look. So we've got 3 WAs and we've got 20 a's to move across. So I'm going to take away 3WA and I'm going to take away 20A, and I'm going to do the same to the other side. So I'll have 36 W's plus the 240 because I've done nothing to those two. I've got 3WA take away 3WA, means that's gone. 20A take away 20A, that's gone. Here I've got 200A, again, always thinking coming top down. So I've got 200A take away 20A. Well, that's 180A. And then I've got to take away 3WA. Now again, we've got A in two positions, two terms, so I need to factorise this now to get the A as on its own. So take the A out as a common factor, so 180 there, and the A out, leave the 3W. So it's nearly done. We've got A in a position now where we can leave it on its own by dividing through by this bracket. So if we divide by 180 minus 3W, I'll cancel that to 1, but I must do the same to the other side of the equals to make it a fair thing. So we've got 180 minus 3W. So we've ended up with the A as the subject as 36W plus 240 all over 180 minus 3W. We have some common factors here because we can see that 3 is common to all of those. So I could divide top and bottom here by 3. So A equals 12W plus 80 over 60 minus W, and I think that's going to be about it. I mean, I could factorise out some common factors between 12 and 80 to make the bracket on top, but that looks to me as if it's in a nice format, so I'll leave it like that. Now we should really check that this all worked, so we could give the W a value here and then rearrange this to find out the A and so forth. So more rearranging. So we got here we got when h features are deep, so we've got a little formula here for finding out the distance you can see compared to the horizon above the sea level, and so therefore we've got to rearrange this to make h the subject. Well, we can see here that we've got a square root, and it's useful to get that square root cancelled out by squaring both sides. So if we square both sides, we end up with d squared is equal to 3h over 2. A square root times its own square root, so if I had something like the square root of x times the square root of x, I'll be just left with x. The square roots cancel out, so squaring both sides will cancel the square root out. So we want h as the subject, so we've got to divide by 2 here, so we're going to times by 2, and then we've got to times by 3 here, which we're going to move the 3 across to leave h as the subject on its own, and we're going to divide by 3. So we've got 2d squared divided by 3 equals h. So our final answer, 2d squared over 3. This next one, we want to make r the subject of the formula. Well, straight away we can see here we've got two terms with r on it, so the first thing to do would be to factorise that and take the 2a across the other side. So we're going to take away the 2a because this was plus 2a, so I'm going to have my p minus 2a is equal to, I'm going to factorise r out of these two terms here. So take the r through, we're left with pi, divided by r there, we're left with 2. So now we can just get r on its own by dividing by this bracket. So we've got p minus 2a over pi plus 2 equals r. So our final answer. Basically here we've got to make x the subject, so we're going to multiply the bracket out first. So 5 times x is 5x, 5 times 3 is 15 and a minus, equals y times 4 is 4y, and then y times 3x is 3xy, but we've got a minus sign again. Again, we want to make x a subject. We've got two terms with x in, so the best thing to do is to bring the x terms onto one side, and so therefore I'm going to add the 15 to this side, so I'm going to add 15 to both sides. So we end up with 5x equals 4y, take away 3xy plus 15, and then I'm going to add the 3xy to both sides to bring the x's onto one side. So we've got 5x plus 3xy equals 4y plus 15. Factorise the x out because we want that as the subject, so it needs to be on its own. And if we divide that by x, we've got 5. If we divide that by x, we're left with 3y. And so our final bit then is to divide through by this bracket to leave x as the subject. So we end up with 4y plus 15 over 5 plus 3y. Again, always remember to come top down. So this was first, divide by the bracket. This one here, we've got to rearrange to make a the subject. Again, we can see a is in two parts of the formula. So we're likely to have to multiply and then factorise out to get the a as a subject. So I'm going to multiply to cancel this divide out. So we end up with p. Again, this is two terms, so put it in a bracket. And that's going to equal n squared plus a. And because I want to get the a's together, I'm going to multiply this bracket out. So I've got pn plus ap equals n squared plus a. I want to bring the a's together, so I've already got a positive a on the left-hand side, and that's really where I want the subject. So I'm going to take away the a from both sides here. So we end up with pn plus ap minus a equals n squared. This pn's in the way, so I'm going to take away pn from both sides. So we end up with ap minus a equals n squared minus pn. I can factorise the a out now because that will get it in a position where we can on our own. So divide that by a. So divide this by a, we get p, and then divide a by a, we get 1, and then equals n squared minus pn. So I can now leave a on its own by dividing through by this bracket. So we end up with a equals n squared minus pn all over p minus 1. Now again, I could check that this all works, and really ought to. So in the original function formula, I can say that let n equal 1 and a equal 2. So here we've got 1 squared, which is 1, plus 2 is 3. And then we've got 1 plus 2 is 3. So when I use these two values, I ended up with a value of 1 for p. So now if I come down to what we think is our rearrange formula, put in the values of n and p, I should get 2 as the value of a we chose originally. So n was worth 1, so I've got 1 squared. Then we've got 1 times 1, and then we've got 1 times 1 take away 1, which is 0. Divided by 0 is not good, so my values that I chose to check unfortunately gave us a hard solution here, so I need to change one of my values. So I'm going to change my n value to 4. So we've got 4 squared plus 2, which is 18. And then we've got 4 plus 2, which is 6. So we get a value of 3 for p now. So now using p as 3 and a as n as 4, we should get the a value of 2 back. So let's see what happens this time. So we've got n as 4, so that's 16. We've got p as 3 and n, 16 take away 12. And then we've got the p value of 3, take away the 1. 16 take away 12 is 4. 3 take away 1 is 2, so 4 divided by 2 is the 2 that we gave the original a value. So that gives us a bit of confidence that we were okay in what we did. So again, we replaced the p and n values and we got back the a value we wanted. So we're fairly confident then that our final rearrangement here is the correct one. That's a summary of rearranging from D grade questions through to the kind of thing that expect at the A and the A star level.